For this demonstration of installing the floating nightstand, I've actually taken the top off of my project, and if you find that makes life easier for you, I'll also check out to you one of those shorter drills that you can get in and uninstall your top. But I wanted to leave the top off so you could get a little better picture of what's happening here. The first thing we're going to look at is the wall that it's going to go on. So this wall is set up just like the wall next to your bed or wherever it's going to be installed, that it's drywall. And most of your homes are probably drywall, unless you live in a really old house. You're going to have what's called studs behind the drywall. In here, I left the screws visible, but in your home, those screws have probably been mudded over and sanded so you can't see where they're at. So we're going to have to use a stud finder to find where those studs are at, because hopefully they're hidden. On your floating nightstand, you have this back nailer strip that's strong enough to hold up your project. We need to have your floating nightstand be somewhere where it's going to hit at least one wall stud. So I'm going to show you how to install this with one screw in the wall stud and one screw in a drywall anchor. But a drywall anchor is not going to be strong enough to hold this up. Now, when we talk about drywall anchors, there's lots of different styles. The kind that we have look like this. And this does an okay job of holding lighter things to the wall. It would not be strong enough to hold this up on its own. So we've got to find a stud somewhere that's going to do most of the work on my floating nightstand. So I have included a stud finder, and the way this works is, let's say we want to install this about right there. Let's pretend that these are covered up. I push the button down until it says ready, and I slowly slide this over, mark the edge of the stud, and then I come from this side and mark this edge of the stud. So I know that right here, in between those two marks, is where my project is going to go. Now, there's a lot of different ways to install cabinets to the walls. This is just one way. So if you've got a parent or a relative or a friend that knows how to do this a different way, go for it. This is just how I install things, and it should go pretty well for you. But I understand that there's lots of ways to do it. So I'm kind of lucking out, and that the middle of my nightstand is going to be about in the stud. So if you have a very specific place where this is going to go, let's say you have a bed and you want it to go right next to your bed, I kind of just traced out this rough rectangle. You may want to draw that on the wall a little more detailed if the exact location is super important to you. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hold up my nightstand where I want it to be, and I'm going to put the included level on the top of it. And I can see where that stud is, so I'm going to put a hole through the back of my nightstand, and I'm just going to start one there, and then I'm just going to drill one pretty close to the other edge. This one is not on a stud. But my project was relatively level when I drew that. So if you can see, I'll tip this. This is why I have the top off. I started a hole right here, and I started a hole right there. This one is going to be on my wall stud. So I'm going to take this down again. Drill those holes all the way through now. All right, so now I have two holes that go all the way through. I'm going to put this back up about where I want it. And I'm going to grab the drill that drills through the wall. And I'm going to need to get this relatively level where I want it. If I've got pencil marks, I'm going to go there. And all I want to do is make a tiny little mark on the drywall wall. That's where my anchor is going to go. So then I'm going to come here, finish that hole. Now I'm going to take a drywall anchor and put it on the screwdriver that's included. And I'm going to spin this the best I can. Push a little bit on it, turn it in. And the hole inside the drywall anchor is where a screw is going to go, and it's going to bite down. So now I'm going to take two screws, and I'm going to take these 2 screws and just set them inside the holes that are in the back of my nightstand. And then I'm going to stand up for this. And if you want somebody to help you out, that's okay. I'm going to poke this screw through and line it up with the drywall anchor. And I don't need to crank that sucker down, but you can see even that is going to hold it halfway decent. So with that in place, now I'm going to put my level back on here, get this back to being level, and then put my other screw in. So there, I missed the stud. And I did that on purpose because you want this to absolutely hit a stud. So I missed the stud. I must have shifted my project over when I put that drywall anchor in. So I'm looking back here now, and I can see where this stud is at. I'm going to redo my hole a little bit over. So now I'm going to be right on the stud. There we go. Now that floating nightstand should be pretty sturdy. Now I wouldn't sit on it or put real heavy things on there, but that should be attached to the wall. And I'm not sure on the angle of the camera, but I've got 1 screw that's attached to a drywall anchor and 1 screw that's attached to the wall stud. I always attach the side that's in a drywall anchor first because I have a little bit more flexibility of leveling this out after that's been attached to a drywall anchor. Studs in your house are probably 16 inches on center apart. Your nightstand is 16 inches. So there's an off chance that you might be able to angle a screw and hit 2 studs, but it should be wide enough for you to hit 1 of the studs in the installation of this. Please make sure all the tools are back when we bring our tool kit back.